Okay. Hello. My name is Erica Strauss, and I am a OT student from Rockhurst University. And today I will be doing a presentation on intimacy after a stroke and through aging. So if you are in a group right now watching this or watching this video with other people, just remember, to be an adult and be mature. Sexual activity is an occupation, and it's an important one that everyone has a right to it. And it's a natural part of being a human being. So if it's important to you, then we can find a way. If you want to participate in intimacy and sexual activity, you can. It just might look a little different than it used to. So don't forget to be open-minded to this presentation and what other people in the room watching this with you might have to say. Respect each other's opinions, concerns, questions, and stories, and just use respectful language. Okay. So first, I want to define some keywords that will be used in this presentation that I think sometimes people misconceive the true definition of these words. So by clarifying this, I think it'll kind of clear some things up. So intimacy is defined as a deeper connection that involves trust and vulnerability. It can be emotional or physical. Okay. So intimacy is not just physical, like a lot of people think. There's an emotional component is too, and some other forms of intimacy as well that we're not going to talk about this in this presentation. Physical intimacy specifically is sensual proximity or touching. It is an act or reaction, such as an expression of feelings between two people. So physical intimacy is not just sexual activity, for example. There's a whole lot more to it. Emotional intimacy involves a perception of closeness to one another, sharing of personal feelings, and personal validation. Sexual activity is any sexual act alone or with another person that expresses sexuality. Can be things other than intercourse. So that's a really important note with sexual activity is there's a lot more to it, a lot more components than just straight intercourse. So if you need to come back to this slide when going through the presentation, I highly encourage you to, because it's what will help you and your relationship with yourself and your partner, knowing the difference between these things. So, real quick, just briefly, I wanted to go through the benefits of sexual activity and note that there are benefits to sexual activity other than pleasure. It can help relieve stress. It can help boost your mood, ward off depression, and release that feel good hormone in your brain and then throughout your body. Um, it can help with healing, and it could help with healthier behaviors, not only between you and your partner, but just healthier behaviors overall for yourself. So, first, I want to get into sexual activity alternatives to intercourse. Actually, just that way you kind of know the course of this presentation. This is the way. Okay, my apologies about my phone ringing there. My volume is off now. So, as I was saying, I want to kind of go through the sections of this so that way you don't kind of like shut down and be like, oh, this presentation is not what I thought it was about. So, first, we're going to go through sexual activity alternatives to intercourse. Then we are going to go through tips to help you with sexual intercourse, physical intimacy other than sexual activity, and then we are going to go through emotional intimacy. Okay, so we're going to cover all of those areas. So hopefully, we will cover an area of need for you. So, again, starting with sexual activity alternatives to intercourse, there are lots of things that you can do either leading up to intercourse or in place of intercourse. For example, foreplay with hands and mouth. You can do a partner massage. And so that can be something that's a bit more sensual. It just depends on you and your partner. the use of toys. And I want to note here that I feel like depending on the generation, there's kind of been a stigma behind the use of toys. And that if there's toys involved, it means that something's wrong or like something's not happening properly. But that is not the case at all. Toys are used just to enhance your experience and it can make things easier or assist you in some ways. But people with no problems in their sex life at all use toys. The use of toys is not a bad thing or means anything is wrong with you. Okay. Um, Kissing on the mouth and body, sensual touching and rubbing. So these are all alternatives that are still part of that sexual activity component that aren't intercourse. So here are some tips to help you with intercourse if that is something you choose to partake in. So plan and schedule when you're going to have sexual intercourse with your partner. And also, I do want to note that some of these things actually work for what was on the previous slide too. So note that. But planning and scheduling allows you to prepare yourself physically and mentally. And it can also kind of help you commit to the act with your partner. Now, of course, if you change your mind, that's perfectly fine. Just because you commit to it, consent is super important. And if you change your mind, that's totally valid. But it might help you be like, I'm going to do this at this time with my partner. And I know everyone's big on like being spontaneous, and that's great and wonderful. But there's also a beauty to planning and having that shared commitment um, to express your sexuality with your partner. Find a time of day that works for you. You know, it traditionally, most people think of having sex at night and before you go to bed, but don't do that if you're tired. A lot of people are tired at the end of the day. You know, that's when your joints and your muscles and your bones are a little bit achy, you're fatigued. Don't have sexual activity or sexual intercourse at the end of the day if that doesn't work best for you. If it's in the morning, if it's, midday, whatever works for you, that's what you should do. Okay. And so that kind of goes with the planning and scheduling. Trying a hot and cold shower beforehand. This is a good way to relax your body, relax your mind, whatever temperature your body prefers, hot or cold. It can really help your joints and pain and just help you feel a bit more relaxed. Using lubrication. This is another one that I feel like there's been some stigma behind with older generations. And just like the toys, it is not a bad thing. It does not mean something is wrong with your relationship if you use lubrication. It can just allow for an easier and smoother and possibly less painful interaction with your partner. Take breaks. There's no reason that you have to, go a long time. If that's what you used to be able to do when you were younger or prior to your stroke, that's okay. But do what works for you now. So if you and your partner are doing things and you need a rest moment, communicate that with your partner. Give yourself a moment before getting back into things. That is totally fine. Using seated sexual positions can be a good opportunity for people, and I will have more resources for those later. Find a stabilizer or insert bars. There's these bars that you can insert on the side of your bed that can be inserted and removed to help give you or your partner something to hold on to and stabilize yourself. Because I know balance might be different for a lot of you now. And using sexual media as a mental stimulant. Again, I know that topic specifically can have a stigma behind it or it may not align with your beliefs. So if sexual media is something that you're open to, there is both visual and just auditory sexual media, and that can help arouse you as a mental stimulant. And again, that's a discussion between you and your partner if that's something that you want to use. If not, because it doesn't align with your thoughts and beliefs, that's okay too. So now I want to get into physical intimacy, excuse me, other than sexual activity. So these can be alternatives to, oh, excuse me. These can be alternatives to doing any form of sexual activity. Or again, these can be things that you just do throughout your day with your partner. So your first physical intimacy other than sexual activity is snuggling, while you're on the couch or in bed together. Holding hands is a good one. A massage. So I know I mentioned that earlier, but you can also have a massage and it be less sensual and you're more just focusing on making your partner feel good and it's not meant to lead to anything further. Dancing, especially that close dancing where you're kind of hugging your partner and swaying, that's a good sense of physical intimacy there. Hugging, I think sometimes we think of hugging as just like, oh, we give our friends hugs, this and that. But, holding your partner and sharing energy with one another and just breathing together is a really good um, example of physical intimacy. And then touching while sitting. And I know this one can kind of seem silly. You're like, what do you mean? But when you're just sitting on the couch together watching TV, just having your legs touching or just placing your hand on your partner's um, knee or having your arm around them while you're doing an activity or just, you're standing in line together and you just rub their back. Those are really good forms of physical intimacy that can bring you and your partner closer together. So now I want to talk about emotional intimacy. And I'm going to touch on this again later, but emotional intimacy is something that can happen separate from everything we just talked about. It can happen while physical intimacy is happening, and it can also happen. Emotional intimacy can happen leading up to physical intimacy. Okay, so a lot of these things are intertwined here. So, for example, you can share what happened during your day, and this one I really want to make an important note here for this to be a true source of emotional intimacy between you and your partner, you have to take time to listen to what your partner is saying about their day. I feel like for a lot of us, you get home, you see your family or your partner or whatever, and you're like, oh, how was your day? And they're just like, good. And you're like, oh, my day was good too. And you just kind of move on from there. Or they might be talking about their day a little bit and you're just doing something else. Take a moment, like really sit down and look at each other, you know, and really listen to what your partner has to say about what happened during the day. Um, let's see. Next is genuine daily affirmations and compliments. So again, this is another one that you can get in the habit of just like, oh yeah, you look nice or whatever. Really take time to like think about the way your partner looks or something good that they did that you liked and give them that genuine affirmation. And, trying to figure out if you can do that once a day, twice a day, have a little goal there to do that is a really good start. Deep and vulnerable conversations. So that kind of leads from those two that we just talked about to this. Um, for those of you that have been in a relationship for a really long time with your partner, you might think, well, I know everything about them. There's not really anything else for us to talk about. But that is not the case. Everyone is growing and changing, and you never know what's going on in someone's mind. And so I encourage you to still have those deep and vulnerable conversations about topics that are not just superficial, you know. Um, and if you need some starters for that, just Google deep or vulnerable conversation starters with your partner, and you'll see so many lists pop up. And there might be some things on there that you've never even thought about talking about with your partner, but they will help bring you closer together emotionally and mentally. Spending quality time together. And for this one to truly, really work, you got to unplug from electronics and like do something together. So, sitting on the couch and you're both on your phone, you're kind of chatting, that's not spending quality time, sitting down and doing a puzzle together or, going out and doing activities together, that's spending that good quality time. And the last is partner meditation. This is one that is very cool, but very hard. And again, I highly recommend if you want to try it to, Google it, search videos so you can kind of see what that looks like. Um, but partner meditation can just look like, you sitting in a quiet area, you're knee to knee, holding each other's hands, closing your eyes, doing breathing together, just having an exchange of energy between one another. It's a really, really powerful, beautiful thing, but it can be hard because I know meditation alone can be hard. So sometimes before you can get to partner meditation, working on meditation by yourself might be the best place to start. So now let me figure out a good place to put my face here. Oh, so that way I can kind of be out of the way of the words. All right, so here's some further resources. So you can, screenshot this page here if you are interested in any of them. So first I want to start with sexual positions for older adults, individuals with disabilities, or wheelchair users, okay? Because I know earlier I mentioned seated sexual positions. And so these resources right here, the top two, um, the Row.co and the Lelo, are both websites with really good resources to those sexual positions that could work for you. And they are in good taste. You are not looking at pornography. It is just like almost like stick figures that are going to show you what the position looks like. So I like that those have images and they explain them. And then the YouTube video is 9 best sex positions for seniors, which again is not pornography. It's all visuals that are in good taste. Sex stores and websites. So if you are interested in toys or using lubrication or just like researching, learning more about the possibilities with just overall sexual activity. A good sex store in Missouri that's very common is Cirilla's. Very, very common. I'm not sure if it's common in Kansas as well. But if you live close to Missouri, I know that there's a lot of Cirilla's in Missouri. And again, I know it can be a little intimidating to go into a sex shop, but let me tell you, those workers in there, that is their job, is to be knowledgeable and work in those stores and make people not feel ashamed for being there. So don't be afraid to go and don't be afraid to talk to the workers. Like they would be more than happy to talk to you and give you resources and show you around and teach you new things in good taste. If you just don't really know where to start, I gave a resource for how to shop for sex toys. So that's just might be the best place to start for you. And then if you are not interested in going anywhere in person, you can go to these two websites, either Adam and Eve or Cirilla's. And those are good websites for shopping for sex toys and just other things in regards to sexual activity. So now we're going to talk about assistive devices for balance and stability. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you might need a stabilizer in your bedroom to participate in sexual activity. So if you search bed assist bars and bed safety or bedroom grab bars on Amazon or Walmart, a ton of things will pop up, a ton. There are things that you can attach to your wall permanently or temporarily. Same for your bed. You just got to be willing to kind of like scroll and browse. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier, but I wanted to get into now is that I know there might be some barriers there, some mental blocks, or just emotional things that you're going through, or fear, or whatever it is, before you can even get started with sexual activity and that physical intimacy with your partner. So I put a website there that can help you search for a sex therapist or a sex coach, um, which are two professions that can help you get through some things, whatever that may be for you, um, to help you then participate in sexual activity. All right. So as I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, all of these things, um, the sexual activity that's not intercourse, emotional activity, a combination is highly recommended to get a really good outcome. So, for example, some people might need some emotional intimacy, whether that it's that build daily or it's just a deep conversation first. Some people need that before any sort of physical intimacy, specifically a sexual activity, can happen. Sometimes it's those sexual activity that aren't intercourse. So the foreplay, the kissing, things like that can happen before the actual intercourse takes place. I think sometimes people think that intercourse has to take a really long time, but there can be a really long, slow, nice build for you and your partner, um, to where then intercourse can be more comfortable for you. So, kind of just finding what works for you and your partner is the best. Picking and choosing from all those slides is something that I highly recommend, because hugging and holding hands is something that you can be doing on the daily with your partner that could be bringing you closer together and, spending quality time. And then doing those things can aid in your ability to have sexual intercourse later. So it's all connected. But again, you can also, if you were just needing help with one thing or wanted suggestions with one thing from one of those topics, that is totally fine too. And I can't stress this enough, communication is key with your partner. Um, like normalizing talking about intimacy and sexual activity with your partner is so, so, so important. It should be as easy of a question as, how was your day? And I know for some of you that it may not start out that way, but that's okay. That's something to build towards, is being comfortable talking about that with your partner. Talking about what you enjoyed or what you didn't enjoy in the moment or after the fact, whatever works for you and your partner. Because if they enjoyed it, that's something to note that you could do again. And if they didn't enjoy it, if you didn't enjoy it, you've got to communicate that. It's nothing to take personal, it's just your own preferences. And so if you didn't enjoy something, how is this your partner gonna know if you don't tell them? So just talk about it. Um, talk about your needs in a non-accusatory way. So don't blame them for not knowing, but instead let them know without being like it's your fault. Being like, I want to tell you that this is what I like or this is what I need. And compromise. You got to find what works for the both of you to be in an enjoyable experience for the both of you. And don't be afraid to try new things. And the last thing I want to note is please, please, please talk to your doctor before taking any sort of arousal stimulants. Um, a lot of you have other medications that you're taking, um, or have things that you need to be aware of with your body. And so please talk to your doctor and do your own research as well. And maybe even get multiple opinions from different doctors, about arousal stimulants, because you want to be safe. Okay. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I really appreciate it, and I hope that it helped you. Bye.